Hello everybody, this is Edwin Evans Thirlwell. I'm the online editor for Official Xbox Magazine. I'm here with Keith Stewart, the gaming correspondent for The Guardian.
Hello, Edwin.
And we are looking at Star Trek, the video game. So Star Trek is, the video game is a prequel. It's set just before this year's movie, Into Darkness. And it obviously carries on in the kind of the spin-off storyline that was inaugurated by the reboot directed by J.J. Abrams. And uses a lot of his production values, I think. And
there's lots of lighting effects there already, so that's quite J.J. Abrams, isn't it?
You can see some definite, and you get the colour scheme, actually. I mean, I think one of the things he did so well with the film was that he kind of basically broke it down to three colours, which are just mapped to the uniforms, practically. It's just blue, yellow and red. So, I think the game does bring that across. This is Spock who's playing here, and he is in the process of running towards a sun, which is not the sort of logical thing you'd associate with Spock. But then, this is the 21st century when this sort of stuff is expected of action movie game protagonists. So there you go.
It's already. I mean, this is quite early in the game, isn't it? And Spock and Kirk, who work together throughout the game, it's a cooperative game, isn't it? I mean, you can play as one character, but you can play with a friend.
Yes.
And already it's looking quite generic in the way it's using some conventions of action-adventure games. There's lots of cover there, lots of running between cover. And this has got to be one of the most cliched things you can do is a...
Yes, no, the door opening leaves a lot to be desired, and particularly if you're playing it solo, you can play it in co-op or without another player if you choose. You'll notice that it teleports in the AI character to kind of help you if the AI character is stuck somewhere behind in a level. So we're in the process of solving. I say we're in the process. We're just watching a playthrough here. But this is a puzzle earlier in the game, and you have to basically deactivate this big explosive spaceship thing. Or
it looks like the inside of a washing machine.
Yeah, it's kind of it could be an advert for some sort of car engine, I think.
You've got to somehow get it off rinse cycle.
Yes, but it's and there's some very basic sort of cooperative puzzles where one player will have to shoot certain locks, the other player will have to uncover them.
They're trying very hard to get across this idea that Spock is the sort of stealth character and the thinking character, and he uses his Vulcan abilities like Death Grip and Mind Meld and things like that, whereas Captain Kirk has got his phaser and it's very much the action. Yeah, his fists and his phaser and his libido.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the vital third component of his personality.
I wonder if you can upgrade that during the game.
Yeah, it would have been a nice... I mean, one of the disappointing things about this game, which I haven't completed, but I've played quite a bit of, is that it doesn't really do anything unexpected with that Spock-Kirk partnership that is so crucial to Star Trek. And you sort of feel like there could be some really interesting mechanics, even some playful mechanics built around that. The libido element would be kind of quite amusing to see. But what actually happens is Spock is the voice of kind of like positive moral choices. He'll tell you not to kill people, he'll tell you to stun them, and he's also the kind of more tactical stealth guy, whereas Kirk is running around shooting things.
Yeah.
In practice, they're both running around shooting things quite a lot, though. I mean, it's not a clean break by any means.
And this is kind of a repeat of the bit that we've just done.
It's got, this is just on from that section.
But it just it mirrors the gameplay exactly, isn't it? It's more like covering to make sure you don't get burnt by the sun.
Yes, actually, no, and this is kind of an element where it gets slightly cleverer here at this point. You've got this whole thing where you can shoot things to make them pop up, as you can see. But again, we're not operating in the realm of, I don't know, XCOM Enemy Unknown or, Civilization. This will be pretty familiar. What do you think? I mean, this is obviously, well, I should give it a bit of context. Not so long ago, I think it was February 2013. February rather. Perhaps slightly too much detail. J.J. Abrams came up to DICE, this annual conference, to speak with the head of Valve, Gabe Newell, about the prospect of doing video games based on films. It's kind of a shame. This doesn't really deliver on that kind of promise that came out of that particular event.
Yeah, and J.J. Abrams is obviously one of those young movie producers in Hollywood now who grew up with video games and really understand the medium. And if you watched Lost at the beginning, it was very video game like, wasn't it? And I had great hopes that this may well. I mean, I thought this was going to be more of a sort of a Mass Effect thing, because the thing about Star Trek is that essentially it's a soap opera in space, isn't it? It's human drama. as opposed to Star Wars, which is very much an action film. And that doesn't really come across, even though they've tried to get this kind of cooperative relationship between Spock and Kirk. They don't. Yeah, there's no way of really exploring that within the confines of what is essentially a very conventional action game.
You do get some RPG elements, has to be said. I mean, they're very sort of lightweight. You can upgrade your phaser to kind of overheat slower, and you can change things with your tricorder. So you can see you've got a tricorder there, which kind of serves as a navigational tool. Also allows you to do things like reinforce each other's shields in combat or heal people from a distance. But we're not in the realm of like proper sort of Mass Effect level class crunching here. It's just designed to accessorize the shooting a bit, I suppose.
And you can scan objects to gain XP as well, can't you? To scan to get knowledge from them. And this is the one of the new characters who is the commander of the space base, isn't it? And she and her father are going to play an important role, I think, in the game going forwards.
Yes, without giving anything away, obviously.
Yeah, but, which I probably just have.
Before that, though, she's going to have to, basically be borderline molested by Kirk in various cutscenes.
Which is pretty much the fate of any woman who wanders onto the set of Star Trek.
No, it's almost like a sort of a magnetic effect or something in a very literal way. Actually, later on, we'll see him fall on her. I'm not sure if that's in this video, but
spoiler alert! Yeah, I think spoilers. It is actually.
And they have that moment where the man falls on the woman in the film, and the woman gets up and goes, "Are you okay?" And he says, "Oh, I am now." And
yeah.
Like, really?
So all the mechanics are very familiar: sprinting, cover. And this is actually one of those moments in a game where you have to escape from something that's being destroyed from behind you, which will be very familiar to anyone who's ever played Call of Duty or Uncharted or Tomb Raider. So yeah, again, very kind of familiar stuff.
Yeah, it's got the feel of a game that's built from second-hand parts.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because there have actually been a slew of games that have demonstrated that you can actually be that cynical and still make a perfectly decent game. I mean, last time we spoke on this video series, we spoke about Tomb Raider, which is another very much a derivative game in some respects, but one that just has a certain class and a quality of execution that this one doesn't quite have.
It's finished! Hooray!
Yep.
we've done it. We've completed it.
Excellent stuff.
But no, we haven't. I think there's some more.
And it's especially a shame to see this kind of slight wonkiness coming out of Digital Extremes, who are the developer and who are not the most respected and sort of best known of developers, but they did make The Darkness 2, which I think was last year.
Quite an interesting game.
Yes, which was based on another sort of third-party license effort. Oh, there you go.
There we go. And that's exactly how I'd park a space shuttle as well. That wasn't a euphemism.
Yes, we won't go there. But so you can see some serious depth of characterization going on there. Well done, Kirk. Right. But yes, The Darkness 2, another game based on a third-party license, and a good one.
They did Unreal. Well, they've been a co-developer on a few things, haven't they? But they were co-developed Unreal at Digital Extremes. And I think it was E3 last year. The creative director said he described this game as though someone's spliced Metroid Prime with Uncharted, which is quite a ballsy thing to say. I think.
Eye-catching, yeah.
So
I wouldn't say it's true of what we're seeing here and what I've played. I think that might be going a bit too far. But yes, I mean. Yes, I think that they are a developer that obviously has talent, but they are not sort of getting into situations and partnerships that allow that talent to take off. And it's kind of, I mean, I suppose, what do you think this sort of says about movie games in general at this point? I mean, there have been kind of several deaths and rebirths of the movie game. I mean, we've had, well, it wasn't a movie game as such, but we had Batman Arkham Asylum just came back and proved that actually you can work with, a non-gaming third party and produce quality results. But this is very much a backward step. This is the kind of game I would expect of sort of, I don't know, the PS2 era and sort of EA's sort of grottier moments.
I think it's one of the, to me from what I've played so far, it's very much one of those games where it's designed to appeal to the fans of a movie or a linear media franchise who don't often play games, who will buy this because they love Star Trek maybe and will go, wow, this is actually really good fun. I get to be Kirk and I get to be Spock, and they kind of, I mean, the character modeling's really good, but without maybe being aware that there's a whole world of video games out there which this is borrowing stroke stealing from. So I think, and the problem with movie games as well is they're often sort of commissioned reasonably late, and the team ends up having 18 months to make this extraordinarily complex thing that a modern video game is, and that's not often enough for them to do anything beyond getting identikit bits and throwing them together.
Yeah, so probably being a bit too judgmental, really.
But that's maybe. Yeah.
When I can make a game like this, I'll come back and start throwing my weight around. But I think it is all, as you say, it's that whole sort of thing where the idea is more to take advantage of the film's promotional campaign than to make a game that will sort of sell in its own right. And it's like, because I would assume that Namco is publishing this. A fair bit of its marketing is just being taken care of by the makers of Star Trek Into Darkness.
Is that Simon Pegg?
Simon Pegg is here.
I do think that in this game, Kirk looks a little bit like a young John F. Kennedy.
That's a very particular observation. Would you like to elaborate on that?
No, just the character model. I don't know.
God, I don't know where to go with that, really. I mean, I was going to say that I'm impressed that they've managed to get all... I think they're all the original voice actors.
I think they are, yeah. And all the original accents.
Yes, indeed. And here we are beaming down to...
New Vulcan.
Yes. Which is an outside environment, which is a relative novelty for this game. Most of it takes place in corridors, as you may have deduced. Corridors with fancy sort of backdrops, perhaps, but here you are actually in an outside environment. I'm not sure, I don't think it's covered in this video, but there are actually space battles as well. Yeah, and the space battles are quite scripted, but I have to say quite spectacular. I mean, apart from anything else, it's just the sound effects. I mean, I think that's one of the things that Abrams did so well with the original Star Trek reboot, was to take all those, goofy little sort of like set noises that we associate with the TV series and kind of smear them together into this very, high fidelity silver screen mix. And you get, parts of that make it through into this.
Because that environment actually looked rather nice, and I think maybe it's a shame then, because some of the comments I've heard from gamers and journalists who've seen the game is that the graphics aren't state of the art, to put it bluntly or politely. But that actually, the exterior looked, really nice, really detailed. You just think, maybe it's a shame that maybe a lot of the action does happen in very familiar, space station environments.
Yeah, it sort of begs, it kind of undersells itself in that way. But I think in some ways, I think the art assets, I'm going to go and try and make distinctions here, which will probably expose the depth of my ignorance, but I think the level of the art assets themselves are quite good. What I was sort of a bit disappointed by was just the animations. I don't think that, particularly during firefights, characters don't seem to just, gun effects don't have that kind of heft that you sort of want. And
but I mean, that's always been like Star Trek's never had hefty guns, has it?
It does in this. You wait.
Oh, they have a Vulcan, but it's never been a franchise which has been about its enormous mega guns. Yeah,
it's more about those kind of like cool little kind of gadgets and things. And all credit to them for making use of the tricorder. I mean, they could have very easily just made this, a shooter without any of those sorts of elements. But here we see the tricorder's bridge opening function,
which is very underused in the television programs, I thought.
Yeah, I know. They didn't open as many bridges as they could have. It was a wasted opportunity. But then, budgets were tight. Maybe, I don't know. Back in the day,
they've leapt straight in with it here, though, which is good.
What do you think? I mean, actually, Abrams is in charge. We'll talk as we're moving further into the base, and there will be some interesting developments.
I think is there an interesting development coming right up? There's obviously lots of
brace for interest. Lots of dead people, and this is in the universe at this point. The Vulcans are a very endangered species, without giving anything away about the first film, but I probably have just given quite a lot away about the first film.
Yeah, surely people have seen the first film if they're going to be playing this.
But yes, so the idea of these, of this carnage.
Zombie Vulcan.
Yep. So there you go. There's the interesting development. And
so they've arrived on New Vulcan, and the Vulcans have all been infected by something that makes them mad.
Yes, you'll hear them shouting things like, stop me, or where am I going, or
who are you? Why can't I see anything?
Which adds a certain frisson to the process of shooting them in the face. Although and this is where, as I say, you're encouraged by your co-op partner to stun other characters rather than killing them outright. And there's a kind of a commendation system where basically you'll get sort of like bonus XP if you complete certain objectives, and they're often just make it through this area without actually killing anybody. Although when you get to the Gorn, who are the kind of key antagonists of the piece, but don't, I think, feature in this video, you're allowed to kill them because they're big scary lizards, and nobody wants their kind of people around. You know?
No, they're the scum of the universe.
Scans show numerous toxins in the adrenal glands and bloodstream.
I was just going to say, Abrams is in a position of kind of incredible power as regards science fiction, where he's handling the next Star Wars trilogy, and he's obviously the guy who brought Star Trek back and made it cool again. And we've seen developments in the past few months where LucasArts has ceased games development, and Disney-owned Lucasfilm is now going to kind of outsource all its games, all its Star Wars games in the future. So he could seriously set his thumbprint on an entire genre, practically, in both games and films.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't know. I don't want anybody in that position of power, really, but I think I would trust him with it more than I would some people.
It'll be interesting to see if he has any effect on where the Star Wars games have been going, because obviously that's been a troubled legacy for LucasArts.
There have been some very good. I have to say that some of my sort of fondest early gaming memories are of playing these sort of sandbox Star Wars games that were probably wouldn't fill out a floppy disk in terms of memory, but the idea is that you fly around a kind of a sandbox galaxy as the Enterprise, and you load up at star bases, and then you go and hunt down the Klingons and things, and there's much more sort of playfulness there than you see here.
Yeah, there was some great in the early 2000s. There were some great Star Trek games like that, weren't they? And they really caught hold of the appeal of the game, which is that there was a galaxy out there to explore, and civilizations to usually accidentally make war with.
Yeah.
Apart from Next Generation, of course, which was very pacifistic.
Now, that was a Vulcan mind meld we saw just then, and if you're playing Kirk, you won't get to do those for obvious reasons.
You just get to kick people or punch them or something.
There's a slight, a slight differentiation.
A Kirk brain smack.
He gets his gutsy charm and roguish twinkle, whereas Spock gets actual useful abilities that allow.
Is roguish twinkle an actual ability in the game?
I haven't unlocked it yet, but I'm not going to rule it out. There you go. Maybe that was the roguish twinkle in action there.
I love the way that Spock's using his stun gun and Kirk just comes up and smacks him in the mouth.
It's kind of, they have lots of the combat is sort of designed in such a way as to try and get some sort of cooperative action going. So with the stun gun, you don't actually down people with the phaser stun like you used to in the shows. You paralyze them briefly, and then somebody else has to run in and hammer them in the face. Which is kind of
That's really an inefficient weapon.
I know. I was kind of hoping you could upgrade to. It may be that you can upgrade to get around that. So we're about to meet Vulcan Captain Lady's dad. There he is.
Sirok.
That was a little twirl from Kirk there.
Sirok, I am relieved to see you unharmed. This is my commanding officer.
And they are discussing
This is Sirok.
things of import.
Some plot exposition.
Yeah, it's happening. Actually, when I had this cutscene, I was playing Kirk, and he went up and had the conversation. Spock, I think, walked into the corner of the room and stared at a wall. He carried on talking as though he was having a face-to-face chat. It's a nice little kind of
nice moment.
Some bugs are worth keeping in, I think.
Why is there always a room in every single fictitious spacecraft with some incredibly bright blue light housed within some sort of twirling machine?
I don't know. It's either that or a lava lamp, I suppose. Maybe one of those bubble chambers you get in the wacky warehouses. I think that would actually probably go quite well with the Star Trek.
Yeah, it would have been good in the first series.
One for the sequel, perhaps. I have to say, I'm reminded. I'm not sure if hopefully our viewers will be aware of the Walking Dead Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network series. I think it's also on PC as well. Obviously, it's not my place to cover such matters. But the developers of that have basically expressed an interest in doing pretty much all of the major classic episodic TV series and sort of classic films as console-based point-and-click adventure games, and I think that would work wonderfully well with Star Trek because, I mean, actually, this goes back to something you were saying before. I think the episodic format would work incredibly well for, for an interactive, for a game based on Star Trek, which is a very obvious observation to make, actually, because obviously there's an episodic TV series it's based on. So
yeah, but it works though because it is about relationships and the progression of those relationships and how everything that they meet in Star Trek is a way of exploring the relationships between the main characters, which is totally unlike Star Wars, where everybody is an archetype.
Yeah. As you said, well, I mean, as you've said, they've got that kind of model in place for, I mean, in The Walking Dead, you have, I mean, it's not as simplistic as this, but there are, broadly speaking, sort of two paths you might be faced with in terms of how you approach characters. You're often presented with kind of binary decisions about which characters you want to save. And obviously, between Spock and Kirk, you have the kind of emotional versus the rational, and that would seem to suit itself very well to maybe you complete an episode and you find out how rationally you behaved versus all the other players who've been playing that particular episode. This is a hacking minigame.
Oh no, there was a hacking minigame earlier as well that we managed to talk through. But if there's hacking minigames, I think whoever designed them, there should be something in the Geneva Convention which bars them.
I don't know. BioShock 1, I think, had that kind of plumbing hack.
I think
thing.
they were earlier than that.
Yeah, it goes back to System Shock.
Well, actually, it goes back. I mean, the Commodore 64 game Paradroid had a mini game where you could. It was basically a droid-based shoot 'em up, but you could take control of other droids through a kind of hacking mini game. But it was actually really good. It worked really well. But I feel that may well be the first ever.
This is some Grandmaster level insight.
Yeah, that's why they paid me the big
notes.
bucks. So yeah, that was the 85, 86, I think.
Okay. But yes, I concur, they are dreadful. And enemies can interrupt them, which is quite exciting, because you get that kind of weird virtual reality overlay while you're doing a hack. And I was playing once, and this massive sort of red-orange blur came in for the left, and I was like, well, what's that? It turned out to be a Gorn, and he proceeded to bite my face off.
Oh, during a hacking during a hacking mini game, is that must be the worst way to go.
Just isn't right, No. Yeah. There's some more merciful takedowns going on. Look at that stealth animation there.
It looks as though he's got lumbago.
Sorry, who's the what's that actor's name again? Zachary
Quinto, isn't it?
Quinto, yeah. Obviously in good shape. I'm not quite sure how old he is. I mean, I'm aware of him obviously being in Heroes. That was his big debut, and but he doesn't seem to have aged. I mean, obviously it's the wonders of makeup, but I feel like he's much older than everybody. It's
because he's a Vulcan. He ages slower than everyone else.
I guess so. So yes. Oh, Vulcan nerve pinch. You see, if you're Kirk at that point, what you do is a sort of a weird variation on the Heimlich maneuver, which looks incredibly ineffectual, but never fails. So now picking up some of those promised heavy weapons.
And I think there goes our bonus for not killing people, I think.
Yep. No mercy is being shown to these Vulcans.
No.
I'm wondering if Kirk's... I mean, when I at one point lost my patience and started zapping people with the old death rays rather than the merciful blue healing rays, and Spock interjected, as I say, with a, oh, I wish you wouldn't do that, it's very naughty, and, I'm waiting for Spurk to say something similar. Spurk?
Spurk is a new character.
That's if you play, offline, and obviously...
Or you merge the two. Does that happen at the end?
Well, there is obviously that kind of romantic subtext for...
We've been writing fanfic.
Yeah, Spurk.
Possibly the least erotic. So that was Star Trek, which is out on the 26th of April in the UK. It's out now in the United States. And that was me, Keith Stewart, from The Guardian.
And that was me, Edwin Evans-Thirlwell, from Xbox, the official Xbox magazine.
Live long and prosper.